Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS Secretary. At my recent Finance Committee hearing, Senator Cantwell showed us this chart to illustrate the decline in infectious disease during the 20th century. The vaccine industry has long used this kind of chart as proof of the common claim that vaccines had saved hundreds of millions of American lives. The momentous 70% decline in mortalities in the United States and Western Europe from contagious diseases since 1900 marks one of the most monumental public health advances in all of human history. Was this really an achievement of mass vaccination programs, as many people, including Senator Cantwell, claim? The most comprehensive evidence-based study that rigorously examines this issue is a CDC-funded study that was published in 2000, performed by a team of researchers from CDC and Johns Hopkins University, and led by Dr. Bernard Geyer. The scientists meticulously examined 100 years of government infectious disease mortality data, and they concluded that nearly all the mortality reductions occurred before the introduction of vaccines, and that vaccinations could therefore claim little of the credit. For example, you can see from this graph that in 1900, some 13,000 Americans a year were dying of measles. By 1960, however, this number had dropped to a few hundred. But the measles vaccine was not introduced until 3 years later. Therefore, almost all the measles mortality had disappeared before the vaccine. So the measles vaccine can't really claim the credit for saving all those lives. Let's look at pertussis, also known as whooping cough. Again, we see the biggest drop in pertussis deaths occurred before the introduction of the pertussis vaccine. The same is true for influenza. Massive flu mortalities had already disappeared by the 1960s, but the vaccine was not widely disseminated until the 1980s. So once again, the vaccine cannot claim the credit. And look how tuberculosis deaths nearly disappeared along the exact same timeline as all those other infectious diseases. Even though there was no mass vaccination for TB in the United States, the mortalities disappeared without any help from a vaccine. Likewise, there was never a scurvy vaccine, but scurvy deaths also disappeared along the exact same timeline. The same is true for scarlet fever, which I had as a boy. Deaths from scarlet fever disappeared in lockstep alongside the drops in deaths from all those other contagions. So what actually did cause the decline in infectious disease mortality? A landmark 1977 study by McKinley and McKinley was required reading in most American medical schools during the 1970s and early 1980s. That study attributed the decline not to medical advances or innovations, but almost exclusively to agricultural and engineering innovations that improved nutrition. These included better roads, air transport, and refrigeration, and superior sanitation. This was the same period that flush toilets and water chlorination became widespread. The McKinleys credited less than 3.5% of the mortality declines to all medical measures put together, including antibiotics, surgeries, and vaccines. And here, for example, you see the introduction of chlorination correlates pretty perfectly with the decline in infectious disease mortality. In 1970, Harvard Medical School professor Edward Cass was arguably the world's preeminent infectious disease authority. He was both the founder and longtime editor of the Journal of Infectious Diseases and president and founding member of the Infectious Diseases Society of America. In his address that year to a joint meeting of the Infectious Disease Society of America and the 10th Inner Science Conference on Antimicrobial Agents and Chemotherapy, Dr. Cass issued a prescient public warning that actors within the medical industry would try to take credit for the momentous reduction in disease fatalities in order to advance their profits, their prestige, and their influence. Dr. Cass challenged the emergent claim that vaccines have saved hundreds of millions of lives. Dr. Cass observed that the decline of mass deaths from these dreaded killers occurred prior to the widespread proliferation of vaccines, and he warned against what he called the half-truths that medical research had stamped out: the great killers of the past, tuberculosis, diphtheria, pneumonia, puerperal sepsis, etc. He cautioned against the claim that medical research and our superior system of medical care were major factors in extending life expectancy. The deceptive graph that Senator Cantwell showed the nation is precisely the kind of scientifically baseless propaganda device against which Professor Kaz warned us. And yet it is a common trope promoted by the pharmaceutical industry and allied medical associations, and there are highly paid politicians to evangelize us into believing that vaccines alone saved all of those lives. Senator Cantwell has taken some $456,000 from pharmaceutical companies. The mantric pronouncement that vaccines have saved hundreds of millions of lives is so embedded in conventional wisdom that it rarely receives the kind of skepticism and the rigorous scientific examination that public health agencies should apply to all dogmas.